started. Give me a minute. We're going to get going. Let me just do a little typing here. We're going to get started in a couple minutes. Just bear with me. All right. I'll start in a few minutes. I'm just editing this thing here. Bear with me. All right. Hang tight, hang tight. Almost there. righty, we are all set. Let me back out of here and let's get rocking here. What the fuck happened? What happened? All right, here we go. Hold on, I gotta pull this up. I lost it. Give me 1 second. I swear. Some bullshit. All right, there we go. All right, I want to welcome everybody to the show. Had to just get all this editing bullshit in. All right, we are good to go. Let me go ahead and get let's make sure you got the Facebook going. All right. All right. We are live on Facebook, and let me get the Instagram going. All right. All right. All right. Want to up here. All right, I want to welcome everybody to the show. Before we begin, we're going to go ahead and just run through some quick announcements. All right. First and foremost, on Friday the 20th, I believe that's the 20th, correct? For those on the Patreon page, we have a Sekhmet ritual. That's for people who are members of the Patreon page. That's Friday. That's going to be, I believe it's 8 or 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those that are tier 3, 4, and 5. Okay. If you are tier 3, 4, and 5 on the Patreon, you can have access and participate in that ritual. Again, I want to put out there because I know some of the Patreon members contact me. In order to get access, you have to go to the original post, and the link is in there. If you are on that tier and you have membership access on that tier, you get right in. You just click the link, okay? All right, I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. I'll put a notification out the day of, just as a reminder, but I've done that before, and then people send a message, how do I get into the class? Again, you just go to the original post. If you are a member on that tier, you have immediate access. You just click the post, you're good to go. All right, so that's on the 20th. That is Friday, November 20th. Okay. Also, I posted a class for, I believe it's the 19th, which is open to all. It's separate from the Patreon. It's going to be a class on Ahriman, working with the spirit of Ahriman, working witchcraft, sorcery, through that path or that deific mask. I posted that. The information for that is on the Instagram. It's on the Primordial Chaos Facebook. It's posted here on the YouTube in the community section. All right. That class is open for anybody. It's not a Patreon event. That's an open event. I try every month and a half or 2 months to do a private class that's open, like a one-time sign-up thing that anybody can sign up for. That class is $55. It'll be the Saturday, the 19th of December. That's next month, okay? And that's from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It can be paid by PayPal. I'm going to update too. There's also, you can pay by Cash App. Baniti, capital Baniti is the hashtag for the Cash App. I have to go back in there and update it because I know a lot of people contact me and want to pay by Cash App, and I didn't have one, so I set one up. So you can pay by Cash App. I will, again, go in there and update that. It's the Cash App. Just if you pull up your app, capital Baniti. If you pay by Cash App or PayPal, please include in the notes your name and your email address so a link to the class can go straight to you. Because again, sometimes people have other people pay for them, and I wind up sending the email to them and they say, this wasn't for me, this was for such and such. Just to avoid that, make sure you put that in the PayPal notes or the Cash App notes. All right. Also, if you are interested in a spiritual reading, the type of readings I do are different klepothic readings with Lucifer, Naama, Lilith, Beelzebub. It just depends. You can contact me. I'll give you more info on that. A reading with Santa Muerte and the spirits of the dead, or a shadow work reading, which is very personal and intense. And it's a good place to start because a lot of people on the path always ask, where should I start? And I always tell you shadow work is the best place to start working with the hidden self. So a shadow reading would be perfect for that. If you're interested in any of those readings or a spiritual consultation, which basically is an open discussion on anything you want to discuss or talk about, that's entirely up to you. You can also hit me up at the same email in the description box here. Contact me with the days and times you're available and the time zone that you live in. Very important. This way we can set up a day and time that works for both of us. I will also put out there the week of Thanksgiving. I'm going to kind of be taking a break. I won't be really doing anything for a week or so. Just a little time off to recharge, regenerate. I usually do that this time of year. So I won't be doing much that week. Might just be doing a few readings or consultations. Won't be doing any videos or anything like that. Just for that week. All right. Journey of the Black Adept Conference number 4. We already have the dates for that. As you know, we pump it early and often. Since we know next year that will be from the 29th to the 31st. Hopefully by then things are in a much better situation and we are able to do it again live and in person. All information obviously pending. As I mentioned on the last video, we will try to get a facility. There was a couple of spots I had looked at prior to the COVID stuff breaking off. I will get that information where we would have it at a hotel, get block rates on the hotel, and have a conference room to do the presentations and the classes, and the rituals obviously would be done at a private location. So hopefully we can get back to doing that. But again, we still got quite a bit of time, but I want to put it out there often and early. You can mark the calendar down. That'll be October 29th to the 31st in 2021. All right. Don't forget, also, if you haven't checked out my Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. There's 5 different tier levels of membership on there. There's a tier 1 level. If you just want to show support for the channels, it's $5 a month. Basically, it's just to show your support. Always appreciated if you just want to do that. If you want to get more involved, you can look at tiers 2, 3, 4, and 5. But again, tier 5 is a mentorship program, the Red Magus mentorship program. If you're looking to really advance your studies and your magical practice, and you're looking to develop your path to self-mastery, that would probably be something you want to look into. It's a one-on-one mentorship program with myself. I work with you. We get together twice a month and we dialogue back and forth. We work have a system that you will incorporate to develop your own path, not to develop my path, not how I see magic, not how I'm trying to get you to perceive it and see it, but to develop your skills and your abilities. So you can check all that out, patreon.com/Beniti. If you're interested in the December 19th class, again, that's open to anybody to sign up for. All the information is in the community section here. It's on Facebook at Primordial Chaos. It is also on the Instagram at Primordial Chaos 9. I will be updating again. In addition to paying by PayPal, you can pay also by Cash App. I have to go back in there and update that. I forgot. All right, that's pretty much it. Also, don't forget to hit the like button. The more likes we get for the videos, channel expands out in more platforms. Also, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Don't forget, when you hit the notification bell, hit that drop down menu. And you got to get notified for all videos. That applies to anybody's channel. I keep putting that out there because people say I don't get notified when you go live. Well, you got to not just hit the notification bell. You got to hit the drop down box too and check all notifications. All right. Email is in the description box of the video. If you need to contact me for anything that I talked about, spiritual readings, consultations, classes, everything's posted on the Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram, Facebook, and here on YouTube. But if you have any further questions, you could email me at the khnum19@gmail.com. All right, so let's get right into it. I want to talk about, you see the title, the left-hand path is a antinomian path, right? Antinomian is a Greek word. What is antinomian? You might have heard this before. In a lot of different conscious circles, the word antinomian, antinomianism, a couple of methodologies to describe it, all right? I'm gonna use a very short section in here, just a few pages, and we're gonna break this down. It's about 4 pages. I'm gonna scan through it. We're gonna dissect it, talk about it. As you know, I like to give you guys the resources that I use so you can do your further research. This right here is the Draconian Ritual book, okay? I don't know, you guys probably can't see it because of the background, but it's the Draconian Ritual book, and the author is Aseneth Mason. You know what, I might just turn off this background. It's tough when you're wearing white. Well, I don't know if you got, there you go. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'm gonna put it. Again, I'll type it in the chat just in case. Hold on. You may not be able to see the whole thing. Hold on. I've got to go to the, hold on 1 second. I got to go to the control. Give me a second. 1 second, I'm in the wrong thing here. We get in that control room so I can edit and stuff. I can't do it from this section here. All right, hold on. All right, there we go. We pull it up. All right, there we go. All right, now, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and type it in just in case you couldn't see. I know a lot of you are familiar with this book anyway, but let me type it in. It's the Draconian Ritual book. All right. Author's name is Aseneth Mason, which I know you guys are very familiar with her. All right, there you go. Just so in case anybody asks, you can just go back into the chat. All right. All right. So what is, and I want to make this clear because, as I've said many times before, there's a lot of garbage out here. There's a lot of things labeled occult. There's a lot of things labeled left-hand path. So we need to, the best way to get a good understanding of those things is really look up the definitions of the word. As we know, the word occult just means hidden, right? Hidden knowledge, right? Well, a lot of things can be hidden. There's a difference though when you say occult left-hand path, right? That's a little bit different because there's a lot of, as I've said, fluffy bunny stuff out there that people think is occult left-hand path, and it's not. There's a lot of stuff that's intertwined and mixed with a lot of religious and spiritual traditions, which is fine if that's the path you decide to take. I only speak out and address stuff because people will send me emails. They'll send me links to stuff and they think it's occult or left-hand path. They'll ask my thoughts on it. And I'll simply tell them a lot of that stuff is not left-hand path, okay? And a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, your sincere left-hand path practitioner would be in agreement. So we don't incorporate a lot of the religious nonsense that's incorporated in what people call the left-hand path of the occult. All right, if you're going to work with traditional systems, that's fine. Just don't call it left-hand path. All right, left-hand path is an antinomian, which leads me to the antinomian, and the meaning and the breakdown of that. It's the complete opposite of that. So we're going to go through that real quick. All right, and I'm going to again start that on page 250 if you have the book. An important element of the left-hand path is antinomianism, right? The attitude of opposing the commonly accepted norms of behaviors, right? So it's the antithesis of what's mainstream or the norm, breaking taboos, transcending limitations, acting against the world order, or inverting conventional values in order to tail the veil of social and cultural indoctrination and to liberate the mind from any form of constraint, right? Whether that's cultural, educational, and most importantly, religious or spiritual, okay? This is where the problem comes in. People, again, want to start using spiritual systems and working with different paths and energies. Okay, they want to play Ifa/Santeria and work with Lucifer and mix the Clipothic stuff in there. I'm telling you, it don't work, okay? What it does is create mental instability. What it does is create a level of, some would call imbalancement. I like to call it a lack of harmony, because you have to be educated on the various different influx of energies that you are absorbing when you're working with these paths. Now, you're not always seeing the effects. So the average individual who's usually a little bit off is not recognizing it because they're not seeing it. They're usually devoured or engulfed or absorbed by it. So regardless of how it appears or seems on the surface, in the long run and from a subconscious perspective, it's going to create issues for you. I see it in people, just the very confusion when you listen to them talk and you listen to them of their understanding. And again, you could have your own personal understanding, that's fine. But remember, there are those who have a different perspective of the left-hand path. And I'm not saying my perspective or anybody else is the only right perspective, okay? All right, I just want to make that clear. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, though, when you're defining something as left-hand path, black magic, witchcraft, and sorcery, there's different degrees of that. And I've talked about this many times before, all right? A lot of it can be very religious and new agey, as I've said many times before. So the antinomian path, which basically is the left-hand path, is the complete opposite of that. We need to understand that. So if you're on this path and you're not really changing or doing anything different, and basically what I mean by that is, if you see an individual who has left those previous systems, but they're still trickling over a lot of those old ways of thinking, methodologies, practices, traditions, because they can't leave it alone. They can't move on and evolve to something better, something more that's personal, that's going to help them grow. They keep bringing that old shit with them. That's a sign of somebody who's kind of, stuck in a rut. That's what I'm talking about. It does, again, if you choose, you can create, again, whatever path you want. If you want to mix all that stuff in and you want to do this and you want to do that, that's cool. Just don't call it left-hand path. Call it your version of the occult, all right? So let's continue on, all right? So to liberate the mind from any constraint, here, the term itself derives from the Greek against, okay? And nomos, law, which is the Greek word for law. And so you're basically saying antinomianism is you're basically saying anti the law, right? That's the Greek word. What law? Any law or construct or restriction, okay? Any law or restriction, rules or regulations is a constraint or a construct that can hold you back, okay? If you're not willing to explore beyond that, then again, you're stuck in a particular system. You're not going to really be able to think beyond where this path goes because there's no limitations on this, especially if you're an individual who's working this path and you're exploring the clip path and you're working with the clipothic beings and you are transitioning through the Sitra Akra, through the void and the abyss, because that's really an intense internal personal journey that goes against every mainstream or traditional practice, right? Even when you look at the basic understanding of the Kabbalistic tree, that's another thing. There's a lot of people out here who are into this Kabbalah, Hebrew mysticism garbage, right? We need to understand the Kabbalistic tree only in the sense that we have a thorough understanding of the Klipothic tree. But there's a lot of people that want to use this high magical nonsense stuff, this golden dawn / banishing ritual of the lesser pentagram, working with archangels and Kabbalistic magic and all that. That's not left-hand path. That's high magic. That's between New Age and gray side magic. And that's okay if that's what you want to do. But anybody that's really on this path will tell you they don't mess with any of that stuff. That's systems that they've mastered and moved beyond. This is why I keep telling people, I still will get emails about to banish, all right? Should you do banishing rituals? And I keep telling people, no. A chaos magician and a black magician is not trying to banish or eliminate any energy. I don't use it, I don't practice it, and I don't teach it to people that are in my mentorship program. What we do is we lock in the primordial chaotic energy in our ritual space. As magicians and adepts, we are taught and trained how to control that chaotic energy. Yes, there's varying degrees and vibrations of energy that all of us here have different perceptions of what are good, bad, aggressive, intense, peaceful, laid back, right? It's how you're going to tap into and perceive it. But your job as a magician is to know how to utilize them at specific periods of time and how to use that energy and facilitate it when need be. If you are trying to destroy some energy, then you are confirming, whether you're conscious of it or not, that there is something inferior outside of yourself that can cause harm. Because anytime somebody brings that to my attention, I ask them, what are you trying to banish? And they'll say, oh, I'm trying to banish bad or negative energy. Well, what is that bad and negative energy? Well, it's this spirit such and such, so then you're not in control. Okay. Now, you may not agree with that. I mean, I really don't care. Well, it's irrelevant, but it is a fact. If you're trying to eliminate something you feel you're inferior to, then the question you need to ask yourself, what control do you have over your magic? Okay. Because this isn't about, okay, there's some unforeseen energy or spirit out there. I don't know what it is, but it can come at me and do harm. That's for an individual that's not in control of their path. Okay. So we don't work with that. All right. Then it goes on to say, all right, so that's what the word means, against law. And it originally referred to views opposing Christianity and the obligation to follow the law of faith in psychology. This attitude was also one of the crucial components of Jung's concept of individualization, right? As he observed in one of his works, the more a man's life is shaped by the collective norm, the greater his individual immortality. At present times, the term antinomianism refers to many views and attitudes that are anti-law. And what are we talking about when we're saying anti-law? Give me 1 second here. Looks like this. I think I'm just going to turn this background off. This thing looks like it's fading. I don't know what's going on with it. Hold on. Let me just turn it off for now, because I can't even. It's faded to black. Hold on. I don't want it to be a distraction. going to keep it off for now. It's tough having them backgrounds on. If you're wearing a lot of white, it doesn't really work. And I forgot I was wearing a lot of white today. So let me just go ahead and turn that off. We'll mess with that another time. All right. So that's what it means, right? Or its original meaning, right? Going against the collective norm, right? On the Monday level, this includes rejection of moral, social, and religious dogmas that impose certain patterns of thinking or a particular lifestyle. This is what I was just talking about, okay? We have to be clear on that, okay? This is why I've been saying for years now, you can't be on this path, but you can't let go of old faith-based practices and beliefs, or you're still clinging on to a system that is or enforces certain ways of thinking and has restrictions, rules, regulations, and tells you can do this, you can't do that, blah, 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 and all that nonsense. This is the reason why. Because as I said, this being a path of antinomianism, going against all of those constructs, you initially are saying, I'm coming on this path and I'm willing to actually push all that aside to explore to the fullest of how I can raise my knowledge, my wisdom, my understanding, my consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Okay, that's basically what you're saying. It's different. It's one thing saying it. It's another thing actually committing it and being consistent in your practice doing it. Okay? So this is what I mean when I see people who say they're occult left-hand path and they're doing Hebrew mysticism, or they're working with the seals of Solomon from a religious Hebrew perspective, right? When it goes back way beyond that. Or you know, they call themselves occult left-hand path, and I see all the, you know, Ashe and Oshun, and all right, that has its place, but it don't have its place here. I keep saying that. And that's okay if you're willing, if that's what you want to do, knock yourself out. But I keep telling people as we evolve on this path, all that stuff needs to be left in the back burner because it's not going to do anything for you. It's actually going to cause conflict as you try to move forward and really understand at the end of the day, the only thing that is real is you. And the only thing that is real from that proceeds out from that is what you accept as a reality. Okay? So those things can be real to a certain extent or degree, but here's where the conflict comes in. As you, for an example, take the journey through the clip pop and you go into the void and the abyss and you start working with things outside of person, place, and thing, everything is challenged. Everything you've learned, studied, practiced, or what you quote unquote personally believed in, or things you might have been doing for years, it's gonna get challenged. And then you might come to the realization that a lot of it, okay, you start to realize it wasn't what you thought it was, okay? It wasn't what you thought it was. You start to question certain things. You start to look back and reflect and go, okay, I've been doing this for X amount of years, and now I'm seeing some inconsistencies in it. See, this is somebody that is on the path, is actually doing the work, and actually has the ability, okay, to go back, to correct, and to make the adjustments they need, because that's the only way you can move forward and past it, okay? And I'm saying this again from a person who used to be in all of those things. It's not coming from somebody with my own personal opinion. To me, people that are stuck like Chuck like that, it's an insecurity and a fear that they can't let go, all right? So let's continue. So we see what this is. We see what antinomian is, or antinomianism, right? It denotes, okay, this is important right here. In the philosophy of the left-hand path, it is a spiritual concept associated with nonconformity and transgression. It denotes the way toward the within, the pursuit of self-salvation. You can't be on the pursuit of within and self-salvation if you're still searching outside of yourself for that salvation through external deities. You see why it don't work? You see why it causes confusion? Because here's where people get fucked up, all right? And I see this all the time in my conversations. They'll be in a spiritual tradition, and they're still praying to deities. They're still looking out there somewhere for some type of salvation coming in to get them. And I'll ask them, where is this deity that you pray to? Well, it's everywhere. Everywhere where? Is it out there? Is it up there? Is it down here? Where is it? Because if you're in a traditional system, say like Ipa or Santeria, and say, here's where the problem comes in. And say you believe, let's use any one of the Orishis, that let's say that Obatala is real, right? Where is it? And now I got a second question. According to that spiritual system, there's multiple paths of Obatala. So which path are we talking about? Okay. And does this deity reside somewhere in the sky in some heaven, like other cultures and religions teaching? And if it does, how is that different from mainstream faith and belief? Now you might have your own perspective on it, and I've heard them all. Okay, but you're stuck like Chuck because you're back to external worship. You're back to looking for things outside yourself. And you could say to yourself in your mind, well, no, not me. I don't do that. See, I don't look at it like that. You may not consciously, but are you really checking what's embedded in your subconscious? Why? Ask yourself this. I always ask a person this, and this is the type of stuff that we deal with in the mentorship program. And that's why not everybody's ready for it. Okay. You know, there's a part in the program where I say, well, let's make a list of all the things that you're holding on to. And let's ask yourself, why? Why are you holding on to these things? Right? I'm talking about a clear cut, good reason to keep doing them. And then people find out as they go down the list, they're not even sure why they're holding on to them because it's a subconscious blockage. They're holding on to them because they're comfortable. Sometimes people do things for a long period of time when it comes to spirituality just because they become comfortable with it. That doesn't mean it's correct. That doesn't mean it's sound. It doesn't mean that it's right. It just means you're comfortable with it. And then there's ways to gauge it. So these are the things that we do on an antinomian path, right? Everything goes against that construct, right? And as I said before, we are the great observers, right? And as great observers, we have to be very critical and have to be very analytical of ourselves because this is the only way we're going to come up with methodologies to address things. Now, call that a form of shadow work, working with the hidden self, as we talk about that all the time. Okay. All right. Let's continue. So we talk about a path from a path of within. Okay. Okay. This is important to understand. It's a path that's associated with non-conformity and transgression, right? A path of self-salvation, right? You hear me say self-mastery, same thing. It's distinct from straight and seemingly easy paths offered to the masses by monotheistic religions, okay? The initiate of the left-hand path views mythological gods and spirits, here's the key, as archetypal beings connected with particular components of the universe and reflecting in the corresponding aspects of the self. How do we look at deity? How do we look at gods or goddesses on this path? Let me say it again. This is why it's a journey from within. I keep saying it's a journey from within, without, not from without, within. Let me say it again, because this is important, okay? The initiate of the left-hand path views mythological gods and spirits as archetypal beings connected with particular components of the universe and reflecting in the corresponding aspects of the self. And how do I always tie in and explain to everybody all the time? Using the first Hermetic principle of Tahuti, all is mental, mental is all, the universe is mental. You must activate that component of self within your psyche. This is when you create the manifestation of the spirit, however you see it. So I'm not saying there's not an external personal experience to this, which is subjective, by the way, okay? So you create that personal manifestation. That external experience that you are experiencing your subjective consciousness, you are creating it and manifesting it by activating the component within as this aspect of that exists within yourself. right? So this is why people over the years have gotten confused. Well, I know I understand all is mental is all, the universe is mental, but I do have visions and I communicate with Sekhmet, or I communicate with Set. Yeah, of course you do. And of course you are visualizing and seeing what you're seeing, but understand who is the maker, the shaper, the fashioner and creator of that experience. You are, okay? That's the difference. And when you understand it from that perspective, you have it's an easier process moving forward. But when you think it's something outside of yourself or something inferior, or you have to pray to some unforeseen force in the sky that has to answer your prayers, and you have to give offerings to these deities, because if you don't, they're not going to answer your prayers, you're basically a slave, mentally, emotionally. Why? Because they use your emotions. A lot of these gurus in these religions captivate your emotions to control you through that fear, right? And then obviously when the mind and the emotions are captivated through slavery and mental indoctrination, you technically are physically enslaved, okay? That's how that works. So this is why, I don't know how many times I have to say it and keep stressing it, why, if you are committed and really want to take the journey on this path, you must be willing to let and shed all old ways of thinking go. You must be willing to also let certain practices and constructs go. You must also be willing to let methodologies and concepts and dogmas go to the wayside, and be willing to have, I like to say, open mind, and clear instead is a better term, because part of mastering yourself on this path is very important, reprogramming the subconscious mind, right? We talk about that all the time. You must reprogram your subconscious mind. What is to it's like reprogramming a computer. When a computer has a hard drive that's overloaded with too much information, that could be good or bad, you must reprogram that hard drive to get it functioning again. So this is in essence what you are doing symbolically on this path. You are reprogramming your way of thinking. So you go back and you're addressing, correcting, analyzing, and adjusting old ways of thinking. That's what this path is about. All right, so let me continue. The initiate uses the antinomian attitude as a vehicle of liberation from dogmas, I was just talking about this, and blind faith, and breaks out of the paradigm that imposes recognition of these forces as superior. There's a video I did a while back, a class I did a while back, about last year, I think, breaking old paradigms and constructs, okay? Breaking old paradigms and constructs, because most of these paradigms, as it's explained here, okay, deal with the recognition of these forces outside of ourselves as superior. Any construct or paradigm that has that methodology over it, you need to totally abandon it, because you will never fully understand this path. If you study, don't mean you can't study a system, but I'm saying if you are a loyal, devoted follower. Remember, we don't follow anything on this path, right? We're not followers. We all strive to be teachers, masters, and examples. We're always a student in the sense that we're always willing to learn. That's not what I mean. We're students in the sense we're always hungry for knowledge, right? We're students in the sense that we're always open for discussions, mature debates, to agree to disagree, to have intelligent dialogue. So we're always students in that sense, but we're not students in the sense that we want to stay up under something or somebody and follow them, right? That's what a lot of people want to do. They want to become parts of groups and organizations, and they want to join some of these groups, get a membership card and go through a degree system, and now they got a title, so you can't tell them shit. They know everything now. And I'm telling you, from a person who's come from that background, from all the groups, okay, Freemasonry, OTO, the Rosicrucian Order, the Theosophical Society, the Shriners, the Martinists. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm telling you, it's from experience, okay? And I found a majority of those people that walk around because they got some title, because they paid the freight and got the Mickey Mouse Club card, I find they don't know shit. They basically bought their way through a lodge. They bought a title. And when you really talk them down, what they're breaking down ain't got no substance. Okay? That's what happens when you want to be a follower of something or somebody. Okay? I don't follow anybody. I've made that 100% clear. Okay? I acknowledge those who are of like mind and on the like path. Okay? I acknowledge and respect those who are taking the journey on this path, but I will not hesitate to address, a lot of the bullshit that comes along with that, unfortunately. Okay? So I want to say this to everybody. We don't follow anything or anybody on this path. We develop our own path to self-mastery. It don't mean we can't fellowship. It don't mean we can't gather. We can't have study groups. That's not what I mean. Because some people hear that and they take it to the extreme. We do that here. We get together. We have group rituals here. We have classes, but this is technically kind of like a class, right? We're not talking about that. That's not following. What we're saying is when the classes are over and the group gatherings are done and you're standing on your own, that's when you're going to really know how firm and rooted you are in this path. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. That's why you can't be a follower, right? Let's continue on. So breaking old paradigms of paths that teach there's superior forces outside of yourself that you have no control over. You need to dead that right out the gate. If not, you're going to struggle. This does not mean that the draconian gods and spirit do not exist as real objective beings. Now let's touch on this. There are forces that had existed before the universe was born in the womb of chaos and are far more older than mankind. I talk about this all the time. This is why people get confused. They think spirits, archetypes, and demons are all the same thing. This is why people get confused, for an example, when they talk about Lilith, right? And they trace Lilith back some to Hebrew mysticism or the Kabbalah or the book of Genesis, when Lilith is one of those spirits that existed before what mankind or human beings know as linear time, okay? Lucifer too, and the many deific mass exists prior. This is why people get confused, because then you have these other people that always are trying to put timelines on shit, right? And we have the super historical people, right? There's nothing wrong with history. That's great, but not everything is going to be able to be explained and have some type of data behind it so you can feel comfortable within your insecurity. Because then there's a term they like to use. Oh, well, if I can't validate it with any books or any data that's in my circle, then it's pseudo, right? We hear this term all the time in consciousness. That's pseudo information. Well, when we're talking basic history, I could see where that term applies. Just standard history. But there are a lot of things from a spiritual perspective that cannot be explained or logged in some book from some author via some data. So it might be pseudo to somebody because they don't have the experience in it. So it's just simple to blow it off. Well, that's pseudo, right? We hear this term a lot in conscious circles. Well, this is why we're working with spirits and demons and energies that pre-exist what we know as linear time on this realm. So you can't put a time frame on it. So you can't go, what was the beginning of the origin of Melek Taus? What was the beginning of the origin of Iblis? Satan, Lucifer, Lilith, Naama. This is why when you go through the Sitra Akra on the other side through the void and the abyss, they exist in a space that is not confounded by time and space. When we talk about a state of nothingness, right? I talk about this a lot. In order to have something, you must have nothing first. People can't grasp that, right? And there's a play on the words and the meanings of them, right? Because when you take the word nothing in English and you break it in half, no thing is really what you're saying. And then when you take the word something, right? English language can be a little confusing because S-O-M-E, some, and then there's another way it's used in mathematics, sum, S-U-M. So when you're saying nothing and something, in basic metaphysics teacher will teach you that how quantum and metaphysics is broken down, you must have nothing or no thing first before something can exist. Well, these beings and spirits that we're talking about exist in that state of nothingness. That's in essence what the void and the abyss is. So you're talking about primordial chaotic beings that emerge from a state of darkness or nothingness, right? How can you put a time frame on it? We're still using terms confound by person, place, and thing just to give us a general conceptualization of it so we can understand it, okay? And that's actually doing it a disservice, but we have to relate this so people can grasp and understand it. So how do you put a time frame on that? And how do you limit yourself and stay in a dogma that only goes back a X amount of years? So if you say you're a Christian, Muslim, Jew, or Buddhist, you're basically stopping off your connection. Judaism, a little bit over 6,000 years, right? Christianity, a little bit over 2,000 years, and Islam being the baby of all three of monotheism, a little bit over 1,400 years. So when you are committing to any of those faiths or belief systems, you basically stop your connection within that time frame. Because that was one of the tricks of those dogmas, to put a time frame, a beginning and an end on it. Because what that does is also cut off your mental creativity. It also cuts off your intellect. Because now, by pledging allegiance to those dogmas, you have now limited yourself, okay? And we're dealing with beings, as I said, that emerge from that state of nothingness. And this is very important to understand. A lot of the Klepothic gods and goddesses, even when we're talking about some of the lords of darkness or those who know as the Goetia, right? The Goetia go way back before the seals of Solomon, right? Then the question you have to ask yourself, who is Solomon? Really? Was there actually a character, Solomon, that lived in the Bible? Absolutely not. Do your research. You will find out. All of your biblical characters were named from cultures that predated it, right? All you got to do is go back to your Genesis story and find out that Pharaoh Ramses II, just basic research will show you he couldn't have been the Pharaoh that was alive during the time of Moses, according to the timelines. Now the question is, who was Moses? Well, when you go do your research and you find there was a person in Egypt called Pharaoh Thutmose I. And then when you go into the Hebrew, you see the name Musa in Arabic, Moshe in Hebrew, and Moses in Greek all come from that same word, he who is drawn from water, right? That's what it means. Now, if you look at the life of Thutmose I and Moses, right? Very similar. Coincidence? I don't think so, okay? But I always say this, show me any historical record or data, since this is for the people that love to, wail upon history. Show me any historical record in ancient Egypt where it's documented on record that there was a group of people called the Israelites in bondage in Egypt for 430 years. You'll be looking all day. You can't find it. It doesn't exist. Okay. That's the problem. Okay. Now you will find, and some further research for you to do, and I would suggest you find in many Bible concordances, and I use the Oxford Annotated Study Bible, which is a good Bible to do history research, because supposedly it's put together by some of the greatest evangelists and religious scholars. But when you go into their concordance and you go into their information in the back, they even admit in the Oxford Annotated Bible that these people that were in bondage in Egypt for 430 years were more, and they're very slick how they word things, just so they could always leave the door open for interpretation. They say, this is probably a people known as the Hyksos or the Hekakasut, the shepherd kings, okay? And these Hyksos were a mixture of Indo-Aryan people that came in and mixed with the ancient Nubians or Africans of Northeast Africa, right? And this is what we basically learn in history as the last 46 dynasties of Egypt, or the Hyksos dynasties, the Hekakasut, the Hyksos, right? These were the invaders that mixed, and then what you're seeing, a product of that today in Egypt. And then we see, obviously, Egypt was colonized by Islam, because if you go to Egypt today, it's basically ruled by Egyptian Arabs, right? Who were a product of that Hyksos, last 46 dynasties of the Hyksos. We need to understand this, okay? So you can't find on any record Now, we do see there was a group of people called the Hyksos that were there for 400 plus years, and they were driven out by Thutmose the First. Sound familiar to your Bible story of Moses driving out the Egyptians, right? Very similar, but they just reversed it. See, what you got to understand is when these stories were passed down through time, cultures adapted the names, the titles, they changed it in accordance with their language because they were trying to convey a metaphor to explain these stories. That's it. It's that simple. But we need to understand this because this will eliminate some of the confusion. But people don't want to take that time to do that. They want to just be engulfed by their ignorance, right? So this is what we're dealing with, right? So we need to be careful with being too antinomian in this matter, or with treating gods and spirit as mere aspects of our inner mind. So this is why I say there is an inner and external experience from me, because I've talked about this before. There's some people that think, oh, everything is just internal. Everything is just internal. That's not true either, because you are manifesting the external experience via your connection with everything that we're talking about. Okay? So this is what we need to understand. So that's wrong too. When everybody goes, oh, it's just internal. Nothing is real. Okay? The only thing that's real, what did I say in the beginning of the video? The only thing that is real is what you have raised yourself up to be, a reality. So just because something may not be real to this person doesn't mean it ain't real to the next person. And that's fine. And that's really basically a Luciferian mindset or understanding. A Luciferian understands that, especially with the concept of Lucifer. And I would refer you to Richard K. Page's books. I think he has a great understanding of Luciferianism because he's very open-minded with it. And he encourages you to study different, because as we know, there's many different aspects of Luciferianism out there. But he encourages you to explore all of them so you can develop your approach, right? And as he says in many of his books, right? Some people look at Lucifer literally as a being, and that's fine. That's your business. There's some that don't. They look at it more from an antinomian perspective, and they look at it, that fine line or that mesh between both. There's a literal aspect to this, and there is a subjective or objective. The purpose of this path is finding the harmony between the subjective and the objective understanding of this. In my opinion, that's what somebody with a good Luciferian mindset does. So you have to understand the subjectiveness to this. So here's where the problem comes in. Somebody does ritual work or they have experiences, and then this bullshit starts. I got a download and a message from the ancestors. This is my favorite. I love this shit. This shit makes me laugh, right? And then they want to push that personal, subjective message and experience on you. And if you accept it without validating, now maybe what they're saying you can validate, and you had an experience to connect with it and validate the reality of it, that's different. But 9 out of 10 times you ain't gonna be able to do that. So if you just co-sign on and validate it, then you're a follower. How can you validate somebody else's subjective experience? And then if you're the individual putting it out there and then people ain't agreeing with you and you're getting frustrated, then you're not understanding what this path is about. That means absolutely nothing to me. Everybody and their mother gets downloads. We get downloads and DNA explosions all the time. You can't find any videos that I've done in the years I've been doing videos where I ranted on in a video that I received a download and I got a message for all you people, and the spirits told me this and the spirits told me that, and they told scratch your ass on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. You don't hear me do any of that stuff, and there's a reason for it, because I'm not trying to influence your way of thinking, okay? I encourage you to get your own downloads. Stop getting mesmerized by other people's downloads. Okay, that holds no weight to me. And everybody and their mother for years now have been doing it in this YouTube. I got to download. And first of all, when you start out, you got to download from the ancestors, not my ancestors. I know my ancestors don't speak to you, so you ain't getting no damn download. So that's the other thing we got to start questioning. When people say I got to download from the ancestors, whose ancestors? Whose ancestors? Everybody? Everybody's ancestors? If you're talking to a group of 50 people, 100 people, 200 people, 1,000 people, you got to download from the, are you saying that everybody's ancestors are the same? And if you're saying that, you're even more foolish. Then you really don't understand what bloodline work is about. So that never really sat well with me going back years. And everybody does it. I got a download from the ancestors spoke to me. The ancestors gave me a communication. Some spirit came. That was for you. That was personal. Okay. Now, if you want to generalize it and pass some of it on, but make sure you're clear when you're doing that. But if you think that anybody that comes along, and if I do it, please correct me. But you will never see me do that. I ain't going to get on here and go, hey, people, I received a message, you know, and the ancestors told me that, you know, in about a month, things are going to get really bad. And it's usually some mundane shit. It's usually some just basic nonsensical shit. And usually what people will do is they'll tie what's going on in the world and politics and the news, and they'll just come up with some mundane shit. But the sheeple, not the people, the sheeple who are so desperate to hear something usually fall for it. They'll just say some dumb shit like, oh, you know what? You see what's going on? Trump is the Antichrist, right? Of course. There are many Antichrists, right? And Trump won't be the last one of them, okay? Or they'll say stuff like, you see, with all the stuff going on with race, see, it was prophesied. Noble Drew Ali spoke about this. Marcus Musa Garvey talked about this, right? Or they'll try to piggyback off of something Farrakhan said. Guess what? There's been racial conflict going back before slavery, or what we knew of it. Before the Civil War, there was unrest, right? And guess what? When we're long and gone, there will still be this shit going on. Okay, the only thing you can do is educate yourself and do what you got to do. That's it. That's all you can do. Take care of yourself first and your family, and then everything else proceeds out from that. How can you worry about all the other shit that's going on that you can't control, but what you can control is what goes on in your house, what goes on in your family, what goes on with your children. That you can control. And regardless of what's going on in the news, in the world, if you let that distract you from what you're doing, then you're weak. It doesn't mean what's going on in the world isn't real. It doesn't mean what's going on in the world isn't stressful, because it is. And it's really sad for these kids. I try to focus on kids, right? What kind of future are we laying out for our kids? I'm not worried about me no more. I've lived my life. I still want to do plenty more living, but I'm going to be 50 years old. This ain't about me anymore, okay? It's not about any of us old fucks that are out here. Stop thinking this is about you, because this ain't about you anymore. If you're that age group and above, you live your life for the children now, whether you like it or not. And if you don't accept that reality, then good luck figuring it out as you go along. Don't be worrying about all of this stuff and how it affects you. Be worried about how it affects, and I'm not talking about even if you have biological kids. I look around, look at all these little kids. They don't really know what's going on. They know to a degree, but they're not stressed out and worried about it like we are. I'm not saying it doesn't affect them, it doesn't bother them, but what are we doing to lay something bigger and better out there beyond? Things will pass. This will pass just like everything else. But it's the approach, right? It's your approach. That's how you got. So stop listening to people with their spooky ass messages. I don't listen to anybody. When I hear that come out of somebody's mouth, I got to download a message from the ancestors. You ain't get a message from my ancestors. I can tell you that shit right now. Okay? You didn't get a message from my ancestors. I don't know who you're talking to. Maybe it's your ancestors, cool. And then again, it'd be some mundane shit. You know, next month is going to be a rough month. Or the weather's going to get really bad. Or the spirits told me they're mad. Really? You ain't speaking to any of my spirits, any of my ancestors, because any of that bullshit you're talking about, that's not reality to me. That's spooky bullshit. Okay? And they ain't telling you nothing of any substance. It's just like those what do they call those phone psychics? You know, like what was that shit back in the day? Dionne Warwick, Psychic Friends Network, and Miss Cleo. They always tell you something. Oh, you have a bad person around. You know, just some mundane, stupid shit, right? We all got somebody fucked up around us, right? We all dealing with some bullshit on the job. We all dealing with some nonsense in our life. You're not telling me nothing, some substance. Give me some names, some dates. Give me some concrete facts that I can connect with. Okay, I don't do that when I do readings with people. I don't tell them mundane shit they can find out on their own. That's a waste of time. Okay, a waste of time. So stop following people. Okay. All right. It is, however, essential to step out of the narrow frames established by the mass religions, which hardly ever reserve any place for spiritual progress of an individual.
Passive acceptance of anything that is imposed on us and relying on blind faith alone leads to stagnation or worse, results in regression. So why must you give up this shit? Because that's what can happen. Okay, it can lead to serious states of stagnation or worse, including regression. Okay, this is fact. Okay, so you got to lay out your path. Whatever you decide to do, that's personal, regardless if other people agree with it or not. That's all that matters. And you can't worry about what other people think, because you might be doing something and two people could be looking at it, and one could be, oh, I'm feeling that. I agree with that. That's cool. And the very same person can look at that same thing you're doing and go, man, that's fucked up. But guess what? The only thing that matters is, as long as you understand it, as long as you're working with it, you're getting results and you're happy, then guess what? That works for you. That's all you need to worry about. And this is how you eliminate getting caught up in this stagnation, or worse, regression. Because I'm telling you, like, after you start to indulge on this path, where do you go from here? Anything outside of this is regression, because you're going to have to go back to one of those previous systems or ways of thinking. That's fact. All right, let's continue. This applies both to monotheistic religions, in which many of us have been raised, and to dogmatic spiritual doctrines. Magical philosophies, which promise transcendence, but have no place for independent thinking, right? And there's a lot of quote unquote conscious systems out there that speak against monotheism, but they're very religious in nature. Look, it's not to be judgmental, but I got to call it fact. Let's look at the Kemetic conscious community. They claim they're anti the European man's religion. They're anti-monotheism, but they still approach the Egyptian deities from a religious mindset. You know, Ashe, Alafia, Hotep, oh, great father, Heru. I told you that I've mentioned this several times before. I had a conversation with a brother, right? A couple of years ago, and I always bring this up. It's about the fourth time I'm bringing this up, if you hadn't heard. I'm talking to a brother, and I'm noticing the conversation as I'm building with him, he's referring to Amun-Ra as the Most High. Fucked me up. Now, I heard it once, I heard it twice, but then when I heard it a third and fourth time, I had to stop him. I said, hold on, stop for 1 second before we continue this conversation. You keep referring to Amun-Ra as the Most High God. It's true story. I said, can you explain to me, what do you mean when you're saying that? He starts stuttering, the Most High. The Most High, like a Muslim would say, the Most High, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Most High, like Yahweh, Yahuwah, Elohim. The Most High, like the Most High God in Christianity. No, I don't mean that. I mean, like the Most High within your mind. I said, no, you don't. That's not what you meant. I say, what you didn't realize you were doing at the time you were doing it. I said, you came from what? He came from an Islamic background. I said, see, there's your answer. Subconsciously in the back of your mind, you replaced Amun-Ra with Allah, and you don't even see it. You don't even realize it. And that's why you keep saying the Most High God. I said, I can't get down with that, because that makes no sense to me. But this is the problem. So we have people who have left one system of mental indoctrination, Islam or Christianity or Judaism, and then they come on this path, and then they bring that same shit with them subconsciously. They're not aware of it. Because that's why he was referring to this particular, in this particular conversation, as the Most High. I just couldn't get with that. It made no sense to me. All right, so let's continue. If you look around you, you will find many attitudes like this. Occult authors promising that their books alone will lead you straight to the godhood and you will not need any others, right? That's bullshit. Cult and sect leaders that offer fulfillment of your spiritual needs, if only you put an absolute trust in them and reject everything else. These are your Dr. Yorks, your Yahweh Ben Yahwehs, right? To a degree, your Farrakhan, where you get so mesmerized by these cult leaders, you reject everything else. And the only thing, you got tunnel vision, the only thing you're trying to hear or believe is what these cult or sect leaders teach. You ever talk to some of these people? They're the worst people to talk to. You can't tell them shit. They know everything. Their master teacher or guru knows everything. And they're so controlled and programmed, they can't even say anything without quoting the guru or the master teacher. You ever talk to a Nuwapian? They basically can't say nothing without quoting their sect or cult leader, their pedophile who's doing 135 years in jail for touching little kids. They can't even hold an intelligent conversation without quoting him all the time. And I've had conversations with them and I say, can you give me your thoughts on it? They can't quote without using the cult leader's books, right? Well, it says in the book that the master teacher, fuck what the master teacher wrote. I'm saying, what's your understanding of it? Okay, what is your understanding of it? Can you formulate your own thoughts, or are all your thoughts somebody else's thoughts? Slave mentality, mental indoctrination. Okay, so as it says here, steer clear from that stuff. Steer clear from them groups and organizations that tell you their way is the only way, and that their leader, guru, he or she, is the only path to salvation. And then there's usually some pie in the sky, like religion, that follows it. You're either going to get swooped up on some spaceship, or you're going to be taken to some utopia in Africa. That's all bullshit. Okay? That's all bullshit. Don't fall for any of that nonsense. That's the other game. There's been many of those people that have come over the years, came and gone, and there'll be more. But we got to stop sipping the Kool-Aid, people. We really got to stop sipping the Kool-Aid. So no Mickey Mouse clubs, right? We don't need any of that shit no more. And then it says, if you come across any of them, run as far as you can, because they are only driven by their own agenda and only have an interest in you as an individual. Well, let me say it. And only have an interest in their own agenda, okay? And they have no interest in you as an individual. Okay. And usually them cult leaders, right? There's always some sex scandal. You look at Jim Jones. What's the other crazy motherfucker a few years back? David Koresh. And then you find out they're all sexually abusing the women and the children, right? And that's usually their agenda. When any of these groups that promote a commune lifestyle, right? What always manifests from that? The leader thinks he's Jesus or the Messiah, and then it turns out that he's molesting the children, and he's got 10 wives, and he's sleeping with all the other men's wives, and that's the agenda, right? And it's all under the guise, I am the most powerful Savior and Messiah. You must follow me and do everything I say. Oh, fuck you. I don't do any of that shit, okay? And if we're still doing that bullshit in 2020, then you need to seek some help, some professional help. I told you, the day of the conscious coon is over, right? Them days ended years ago. If you still falling for that conscious nonsense, then unfortunately, whatever happens to you, you deserve it, okay? Fact, as I said, run as far away from them as you can, all right? There are many magical systems and philosophies that pretend, here's what I was saying earlier, to be a part of the left-hand path, but are not. Instead, they only prey on the naivety of those who get attracted to their sinister glamour. Pay me thousands of dollars and I can do this evil ritual for you. The fuck out of here. Join this group I have for a ridiculous amount of money, and you will become so powerful you'll be able to do anything. The fuck out of here. Right? This is what antinomian path is about. Right? We speak out on this shit. This is what we address. I don't care. I couldn't care if anybody likes it, loves, or hates what I'm saying. I'm not here for that. I'm here to just put information out. You do with it what you see fit. My job isn't to be loved, liked, or hated. I don't care about any of that stuff. My job isn't to gather followers. I'm not interested in any of that stuff. I'm not on YouTube like some of these other spirituals that do this for a living, and they rely on YouTube and the hustles they run on YouTube for a living. Okay? Those are usually those people. Be careful. Okay? But they're only a prey of naivety to those who get attracted to their sinister glamour. The attitude of obedience and blind faith belongs to the right-hand path, which aims at integration with the divine order and is characterized by extroversion, exposing yourself to the outside world. In the spiritual sense, this signifies union with a transcendent being that is above the adept, who is expected to abandon one's individual aspirations and subordinate to a higher force. The left-hand path is characterized by introversion and puts emphasis on individual experience, the initiatory journey into the depths of the initiate's personal underworld. Notice it said personal underworld, okay? Which is the way of isolation that requires a lot of self-intuition and independent thinking. The magical motto here is know thyself. And this knowledge is always individual, right? What is inscribed? Something you learn in alchemy and mysticism, right? What's inscribed above the temple of Heliopolis? Know thyself and thou shalt know the gods, right? It didn't say look outside yourself and thou shalt know the gods, right? Because that's what religion does. The only way you can understand archetypes, gods, goddesses, deities, spirits, demons, whatever, you must know yourself first. You can't, there's no getting around that, right? And that's something that the Egyptian mysteries taught. Know thyself and thou shalt know the gods. It didn't say get down on your knees and look up somewhere out there and see if you can find it. That's not what it said. It said, know thyself, thou shalt know the gods, right? Even in the present world, many antinomian practices are still viewed as forbidden and controversial. This usually applies to rituals that are aimed at liberating the spirit from the bonds of cultural, social, and religious indoctrination, sex magic, blood sacrifice, necromantic practices conducted at graveyards and burial places, etc. They still raise a great deal of controversy, and people who perform such rites have always been accused of all kinds of perversions and obscene acts. But in fact, magic is indeed an act of perversion and a process of transgressing and transcending personal barriers and limitations. The key term here is personal. All antinomian processes occur on a personal level and require facing personal taboos and inhibitions. So you hear the word perverse, your mind automatically goes to something sexual. That's not what it always means. To pervert something could be to destroy it. And in order to destroy it, something has to be destroyed in order to be rebuilt again, right? We call that on this path the process of deconstruction and reconstruction, or reconstructive magic, right? That's what this is talking about, all right? The famous Black Mass with its blasphemous anti-Christian elements will not be liberating to someone who is not Christian. Sexual orgies and perverse sexual practices will not bring freedom from moral restraints to a swinger. Ritual killing of animals will not be groundbreaking for someone who works in a slaughterhouse, right? Finally, blood sacrifice and bloodletting will not have a special meaning for someone who is a regular blood donor. The thrill of liberation is only achieved when the practices transcend that which lies within the borders of safety, morality, routine, or convention. And I said this all the time. People get caught up in a routine. They get comfortable via a routine. That's the problem. And this is what this is warning you of. So challenging yourself is about going outside of your comfort zone, right? Which is not always an easy thing for some people to do, right? I'm not just talking about physically, we're talking mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, right? We transgress our limitations. I'm almost done here, then I'll go to the chat. We transgress our limitations by exploring that which seems repulsive, dangerous, or forbidden. It is also characteristic of the left-hand path that things we find the most disgusting and horrifying in the process of initiation become the object of the strongest fascination. And that goes to the science. With resistance comes persistence, right? I always said this before. Look at it like this. Here's a good metaphor to understand that. It's like putting a bunch of small children in a room and placing a container in the center of the room and telling them, I'm about to leave, do not touch or go near that container. What do you think is going to start to happen? The child's going to get curious. They're going to be more motivated and fascinated to really see what's in that container. And at some point, they will make it over to that container and open that container. That's what this is talking about. This is exactly what this is trying to convey and explain. So we don't try to suppress exploring, because that's going to create the persistence. Okay, where the urge becomes stronger to explore, right? Think of something that disgusts you so much that at first you would say, no way, it is not for me. And imagine that at a certain point, sooner or later, the same thing will become so intriguing and fascinating that you will not be able to resist it. And when you finally succumb to fascination, it will become a source of new inspiration and release new amounts of energy. Take, for instance, a fear or a phobia, right? Maybe it's fear of heights, okay? Maybe it's you have fear of driving in a fast vehicle. Maybe it's fear of being in a deserted place, dark at night. I'm just giving any phobia or fear, right? Fear of deep water, any of these things. You can turn that around, and that's what we work with on this path. You can turn your weaknesses, your phobias, and your fears, and it can make you a stronger person, okay? By exploring it, by dealing with it, by addressing it, okay? Not by just resisting it and trying to bury it somewhere and acting as if it doesn't exist, right? All right. What was disgusting becomes fascinated and is embraced with joy and delight. This is how the antinomian process works in your mind. And this is also the way of the clip pop. All magic of the left-hand path breaks personal barriers, at the same time releasing energies that makes you act and want to experience things. The breaking of taboos leads to empowerment and divinity. This, of course, may be scary and dangerous too. Antinomian practices can arouse the sense of guilt, self-loathing, the feeling that you have done something wrong, immoral, or unforgivable, etc. Not everyone is able to enjoy the discovery of one's dark side and draw strength from it. On the draconian path, it is Lilith that manipulates desires and inhibitions, especially those connected with sexuality. These are her initiatory tests, which you must pass in order to gain access to further aspects of her teachings and to win her attention. And this is why I could tell you most people, okay, who claim to work with Lilith and come with all this mundane goddess nonsense, this is how I know they're not really working with Lilith, based on, as explained there, because of that serious personal internal self-initiation process she puts you through, of what you have to experience and understand and go through in order to get your mind elevated to that understanding. And nobody talks about the struggles and the obstacles and the challenges they go through. Everybody always, you hear these people talk about working with Lilith. Oh, and she's a beautiful goddess, and she blessed me with peace and love. I don't know what you tapped into, okay? And there was no struggle in any of that. It didn't unlock any of the shit you need to deal with, any of your bullshit. It didn't unlock any of the shadow or the hidden self where you had to address your personal weaknesses, and we all got them, okay? We all have them. And if you think you don't have anything wrong with you, that's your first mistake, thinking you don't got nothing wrong with you, okay? That's your first lie to yourself. If you're walking around thinking there's nothing wrong with you, that's the first problem what's wrong with you, the fact that you think that there's nothing wrong with you. We all have something wrong with us. We all have issues. We all have weaknesses. Okay. We all have things we can continue to work on. I don't care who you are, how long you've been studying, or what you think you know. And if you think otherwise, then you're too deep for everybody. You perfect, you special, right? All right. Then it goes on to say, Lilith is one of the first deities encountered on the draconian path, and she could be a powerful guide in your initiatory process. But her tests and ordeals are not easy. In legends and myths, she is associated with disgust, impurity, immorality, all that is abhorred and forbidden as it transgresses laws and values of society and religion. There is a folk legend which says that Lilith is so impure that only one drop of her menstrual blood is enough to poison the population of an entire town. Okay. Now, what it means is that people get this term confused, right? The new age fluffy people that work with Lilith. Oh, I don't understand her in the aspect of being impure. It doesn't mean, see, when your mind is operating on this religious concept of purity you get confused. It means she's impure because she poisons, destroys, and annihilates all the main constructs or conformed ways of thinking. She poisons and pollutes dogmas, faith, religions, being controlled, being a systematic way of thinking. She poisons that. And that's why it says symbolically one drop of her menstrual blood would annihilate and poison all of those things. Okay, so people go, oh, that sounds negative to refer to her as one of the most impure. Well, if you're looking at it from a fluffy religious perspective, then you're not understanding what that means. So let me address that because that's come up in the past, right? The process, we're almost done. The process of breaking taboos and transcending personal limitations should be carried out in a responsible and conscious way. So it doesn't mean you be reckless and abandoned to yourself. You have to establish your lines. You have to establish your personal boundaries, right? You have to establish of how you're going to experiment, the when, the where, the why, and the how. That's up to you, okay? Otherwise, it can turn against the magician if you don't understand yourself. Remember, know thyself and thou shalt know the gods, right? It is a mental process which manifests through events and phenomena of your personal, intimate reality. The word perversion, however, means inverted. Okay? That's all. It just means you're reversing something. You hear perversion, and if your mind immediately goes to sex, because what do we call somebody who's not sexually in control? We call them a pervert, right? So if we hear the word perversion, we automatically think it's sexual, and it's not. You can pervert a peaceful gathering by coming in with a gun and causing disruption and violence, right? You can pervert a child's birthday party by causing an argument and being negative, right? You could. There's many ways to pervert something. Stop getting caught up in the programming. But we only think the word pervert or perversion refers sexually. Is it referred in certain areas when it's referring to descriptions of sexual deviance? Yes, I'm not saying it's not, but it's not its only description. Okay, we need to understand that. All right. And it refers to the opposite or inverted of what is considered as normal behavior. For example, a person who is sexually promiscuous may consider aesthetic practices and celibate. That would be a perversion. Say you are somebody who was sexual promiscuous and you decided to be celibate. You are perverting what you used to be. You are inverting it or reversing it. That's all. It works both ways. See, nobody looks at it like that, though. Okay? Therefore, you have to seek those ways of liberating your consciousness that will be meaningful to you alone. However, this may be sexual practices, ritual bloodletting, may be traditionally associated with transgression. I'm gonna try to speed through this, but they do not have to mean the same to you. On the other hand, they also have a deeper meaning in magical practice and are not limited to the antinomian taboo breaking acts alone. Magical experiments with transgressing the basic limitations are part of the descent into the depths of unconscious. The work with your personal shadow or your shadow self, shadow work, that's all it is, okay? Your individual's dark side. By getting to know your own darkness, you can transform your fears and inhibitions into tools of power. And this is why I say shadow work, connecting with your ancestors, and demonic integration are the foundation and pillars to what this path is about. If you are not working in those areas, you're going to have a hard time on this path. And I show people how to do this in the mentorship program. And I know there's some of you in here now who are in it. You know how I operate and work. And I'm showing you not my interpretation. I'm not telling you it has to be done like this. I am showing you a formula that has worked for many, many years. And I'm showing you how to make and use that formula and, like a sorcerer, conjure up your own formula that works for you. Okay, that's it. But you must be utilizing the practices of your connection with your bloodline ancestors, shadow work, and demonic integration. It's a must. I don't care what anybody says. Okay, don't mean you can't work on the path. That's not what I'm saying. So, well, I don't do that, and I do this. Okay, cool. I didn't say you couldn't, but I would put money on it over long periods of time. It would be open discussions for consistency. Okay, all right, almost through. A part of the antinomian philosophy is also the idea of non-attachment. You need to stop identifying yourself with your actions, roles you play in everyday life, things you possess. If you have a title, that's why I say people get titles. Fill the position, don't let the position fill you. Just because you're some boss or some supervisor or you have some title in the mundane world, you know what that really means to us in the darkness and in consciousness? It means absolutely nothing. Okay? Okay? It means nothing. It's a title. Okay? And if people are going to enforce and use their title on you, like you're supposed to bow down and worship them, fuck them. That's all I got to say. I don't bow to nothing and nobody. I don't care what it is you think you know. That's great. Power to you. Knock yourself out. I ain't kissing nobody's ass. I ain't a yes sir, yes man person. Never was, never will be. And I'm not or don't have any problems speaking my opinion. I'm not saying you have to agree with it. I'm also mature enough to know not everybody's going to agree with what I say, and that's just life. But I'll be damned if I sit back and be quiet and just nod and agree with everything that somebody says because I can't voice my own opinion. Fuck that. That's what this is about, right? All right. What you perceive as reality is only a reflection of your observations, your individual perception of the world. When your perception shifts, the reality and the surrounding world shift as well. In order to make this reality and the surrounding world shift as well, in order to make this shift happen, you may have to change the way you perceive things, name them or identify them with certain concepts and meanings that have been taught by the world around you. A child does not tell the difference between good and evil, right and wrong. You want to know this is a fact? Take a bunch of small kids. We all seen this, right? And how many times I've seen this in New York on playgrounds? Small little kids, they could be black, Asian, white, Latino, whatever ethnicity. All they want to do is play as children. They don't see any of that hate. They don't see any of that ignorance, right? This goes back to the Christian's Bible when Jesus said, you want to understand what I'm teaching? You must become like the little children. What did he mean by that? It was symbolic. He was talking about not have a corrupted and polluted mind. That's why he was a great black magician teacher. I look at Jesus as a left-hand pad black magician, sorcerer, because he was teaching everything against the norm at that time of what was going on. But look at that. What is confirming here? You put a group of little children together, they do not see black, white, Chinese, Latino. All they see is another child. All they tap into is that childlike energy, and all they want to do is have fun. Right? That's it. When do they become corrupted? As they get older and we as adults start programming their mind with garbage. A child is taught racism. He doesn't just naturally born a racist or hateful. As they become older and as we as adults try to enforce our perception on them of how they should see life, then they can go the wrong route. That's what this is talking about here. And don't tell me that's not a fact. Get a bunch of small children, 3, 4, 5 years old. They don't care what you look like. They don't see color. They don't even look. You could take a kid with orange hair and freckles, and you could take a dark-skinned kid with woolly hair. They don't see any of that stuff. All they see is another little kid in front of them that's about the same age as them, and all they know is that's a kid. I just want to have fun. Why? Because their mind is not polluted and corrupted. See, let's address racism from that perspective. Nobody talks about that, okay? Nobody talks about that. This is how you know hate is taught to an individual, okay? A person just isn't born hateful. Even your greatest skinheads or black extremists weren't birthed into the world hating people, okay? At some point, something triggered that hate. Yes, we can get into racism on both sides. We can get into history. But we need to get back to that childlike perspective, which is a hard thing to do. That's a hard thing to do. And let me make this clear, because then people get all up in they get their panties in a knot. I'm not saying racism doesn't exist. It does. If you think in this world we live in, there's not levels of systematic racism, there is. All right. I know some people play off it though. Are some people running with it? Yes. But does it exist in America? Yes. It exists in our educational system. It exists in our law. It exists in society, in the universities. We know this is a fact. So I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but what I am saying is we have the ability and the power to change it. How? This is why I said earlier, this ain't about us. It's about these children. If you bring your children up, the only way to correct this shit is they need to get into positions of power and become judges and lawyers and teachers and professors and astronauts and Supreme Court justices. That's how you change it. Don't sit here and go, oh, the system this and the white man this and the system that. Well, how do you think the white man got up into everybody else's culture and society? Because he got into their government, he got into their society, he colonized, took over, and that's how he started running shit. So the only way we're going to make a difference is stop teaching your children the only thing they could be is rappers and basketball players. Okay? And I'm not saying if you have my son plays hockey. He loves the sport. But if he gets older and goes another route, I support him on that. So I'm not saying you can't have your kids in athletics and entertainment. But let's be real. Not everybody's kid is special and going to be a superstar. That's the other problem. Stop thinking your kid, because they can sing a song, that they're going to be the next Whitney Houston. Stop. Because probably there's a 98.9% chance that shit ain't going to happen. But we're not encouraging these people, adults, to have these kids get into these universities, instill programs, change the curriculum. The only way you can change the curriculum, you got to get up in the curriculum. So, see, contrary to the belief, we're all told, oh, the system don't work for you, don't get involved. I don't agree with that. I think you have to get involved. You have to infiltrate, not infiltrate in an illegal way, because people hear that word and they think, oh, what are you saying, to do something illegal? No, infiltrate means simply to get in on the inside. Have your kid become a professor at Berkeley University, right? And teach African studies or teach metaphysics or teach psychology from a correct perspective. That's how you change the shit, okay? You can't sit back and go, shit is fucked up, but you ain't making no moves to get up in there and change it. The only way it's going to change, we got to get up in there and change it. And then I hear the other opposition. Oh, well, you know, we don't have the opportunities. I said infiltrate. Pay attention. Let it sink in. Okay. I could see if this was 50, 60, 70 years ago. There's ways of getting around things nowadays that we couldn't even dream of doing shit 20, 30 years ago. I don't even got to go back that far. Okay, you can't say you're a god or a goddess and then turn around and say, I'm at the mercy of some unforeseen forces. I don't know how to do it. And then use race as a crutch to lean on. I just don't buy that no more. Maybe 20 years ago I did. I don't buy that shit no more. Anyway, I don't want to turn it into that, but you get my point. All right. So we were talking about the children. All right. A child does not tell the difference between good and evil, right and wrong, does not know that red is red and the tree is a tree until someone names it and attaches the commonly recognized meaning to these concepts. These things and many others are taught in the course of upbringing. We do it as adults. In order to break free from these patterns of cultural indoctrination, we have to stop identifying with them or attaching ourselves to the world around. Once you break these attachments to the world will no longer have power over you. That's how you do it. Okay? That's how you do it. And that's what I was saying earlier about if you're caught up in everything that's going, look, I watch the news to stay abreast, but if you sit in front of that shit all day, that is an idiot box. It will start to weigh on your mind. It will start to stress you out. Have you ever watched the pattern of any of the major news networks, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox? I flipped all three of them because they all got an agenda. CNN is so liberal and left-wing, and they're so concerned about equality, justice, and they love black people now. Comical. And then you go to flip to Fox News, right? Fox News tries to be so pro-Trump, and then they discreet their hate and their racism. And then MSNBC is neutral. They're in between. But if you watch it, they bring on the same people hour after hour to basically say the same thing a different way. If you watch CNN all day with the coronavirus alone, you'll think you're going to die tomorrow, literally. You will think you were going to kick the bucket tomorrow because they're very slick at promoting this equality shit and then doomsday at the same time. And I'm not saying, like, I want to make this clear. I don't want to get into the whole coronavirus thing. I've talked about this for months. I'm not saying there's not a virus out there. There is. There's something going on, regardless of where you think it came from. Whether you think it was genetically made, whether you think it's not real, people are dying. Whatever's going on is going on. And all I've simply said to address that, be smart. Just do smart things, take care of yourself, and live your life. That's all you can do. But don't sit in front of that idiot box all day and be programmed by that shit, because that shit will get into your mind. It'll start fucking your head up, and people become fanatics. Okay? So we need to be conscious of that, right? For example, when you go to work, stop thinking of yourself as a secretary, manager, accountant, or etc. This is only a task you do, and you can do another job, whatever you want. This is why people feel like they're failures in life. This is why, remember what I said? If you remember old videos, I said, I don't care if you go to McDonald's and flip hamburgers, you be the best hamburger flipper you can be. That doesn't define who you are. It just means you're doing a task, but you're not a hamburger. But when you start going to a job with a shitty attitude, and it might be a shitty job, you may not like it, and it may not be paying you what you want, but it's your attitude and approach. You go to that job with the right approach, and eventually a bigger and a better door will open up for you. So go to McDonald's with, I'm going to be the best burger fry flipper in the fucking world. And then somebody's going to recognize it. And before you know it, you're a swing manager. Before you know it, you're assistant manager. Before you know it, you might be a store manager. Before you know it, you're out of there into another job. Why? Because of your attitude and your approach. Well, if you get up every day, look, I don't love what I do every day for work, but I got to go at it with the right mentality. Yeah, I bitch and complain, but I have to catch myself sometimes. We all do. It may not be that's what we just do. It's not who we are. Do you understand that? Fill the position. Don't let the position fill you. Okay? I don't look at myself as a logistics supervisor. That's what I do. I deal with logistics and transportation. But I don't look at that like that's my goal and career in life and that's who I am. No. So I don't give a shit if you're flipping hamburgers, a short order cook, working in Home Depot, Target. If you're approaching your intent and your attitude, like you could always tell, we walking in them places, let's be real. You walking in places, some miserable ass motherfuckers in there. You see them. They look like they hate life and they hate their job. I've literally told some of them, you're having a rough day. I get it. Take a deep breath. I didn't force you to take this job. You understand? If you don't like your job, then do something about it. But then you see the other person. Do you ever wonder when you go into some of them places? Like there's a young kid that works at the Starbucks that I go to here, young brother. He got to be maybe 16, 17-year-old kid. This kid is the most professional kid I ever seen. The way he communicates, he's always got energy, attitude. I would put money on it. If I go visit this kid 10, 15 years from now, he's going to be successful. I don't care what it is he's doing. He's in that Starbucks like he's working for the CIA. He's that enthused about it. That's the difference, people. I always talk about your approach. I know it's hard. You might get up and say, man, life sucks, life's shitty. I can't, it's hard. I've had jobs like that. I'm sure we all have. Where you're driving in the car on the way to work, you're like, I hate this fucking job. But I learned as I got older, your day goes quicker when your mentality and approach changes vibration and frequency. And then doors start to open. Not because they just puff the magic dragon, they're opening. They're opening because your attitude has now changed. Your approach has changed. And then before you know it, you're leaving that and transitioning into something better, all right? All right. When you drive a car, stop thinking this is my car. Think this is the car I drive. When you come home, do not think this is my house, but rather this is the house I live in. When you spend time with your partner, do not think this is my partner, but this is the person I share my life with. See the difference? But then you have insecure people go, that's my woman, or that's my man. These are usually people that are insecure, right? That's the person you share your life with. And that may not always be a pleasant thing. I can attest to that. I'm just kidding. No, I love my wife. She's great. She's over there cooking, probably gonna throw something at me. But yeah, you have to do this and think, I'm doing it because this is what I enjoy doing and it makes me happy. When you work with a magical group, do not identify yourself with thinking I am a member of this group, but think this is a group of magical friends and colleagues I share the path with. right? That's different when you're working in groups and studying, okay? I share identification and attachments bring expectations and enclose the world within defined borders, which often leads to frustration, obsessions, fear of change, disappointment, and negativity, which in turn leads to failure in the many areas of life. Some magicians may want to see these borders as a foundation to their magical path, but this is illusionary. And the draconian current can shatter these illusions at any time, as the true foundation of the path is change and evolution. If you're on a path and it's not doing that, you're not doing anything. We get stuck in frustrating jobs, wrong relationships, struggle with health and money issues, and perform one magical operations after another to change it without realizing that the key to manifestation of our wills is in ourselves and not outside. For failure, we blame magical systems, ritual formulas, teachers, and mentors. This is why people jump from group to group, right? Because they get involved in the spiritual system or the group, shit don't go their way, and then they try to find some excuse. It wasn't them. They weren't fucked up. They didn't do anything. It's always somebody else did. This person was fucked up. Oh, it was bullshit. But they never take no responsibility for themselves. You ever notice that? That's fact. Okay? Okay. But no, you didn't do anything. You're 100% perfect, right? You have no faults. The fuck out of here with that bullshit. All right? Okay. Last paragraph, and then we are done. All right. We make the world what it seems to be, no one else. In this case, in this sense, non-attachment is a powerful tool of spiritual progress. This may all sound like something simple and obvious, but in fact, it is very difficult to convince our consciousness that all we have learned in this entire life is not part of us, and that we can leave it behind or give it a new meaning whenever we want to. Everything in the world and in our life is a matter of our choices and how we see ourselves in this reality, and we can make different choices at any time. There is nothing that binds us to anything in the world except our own will. This awareness releases power and energy that you cannot even imagine. But this is also a demanding and difficult process. Once you learn to do this and successfully convince your mind that you have no attachment to the surrounding reality, you will see it change and bend to your will. Your finances will improve. Your relationships will bring you more love and happiness that you have ever had before, and you will feel your desire and will manifesting at the same time without any special rituals or magical operations. Your entire life will become an act of magic in itself. All right? That's that. I know I raced through the last part of it for the sake of time. I don't know what else I can say. So I'm gonna go through the chat and get to as many as I can. I don't know how long. I'm not gonna be able to do too much. I'm gonna try the best of my ability. And let's see what questions you guys got. I'm gonna go up to the top. So I hope we're clear on now what this path is and what it's not. It's an antinomian path. It's not for everybody. And that's fine. And if it's not for you, that's cool. No big deal. No feelings lost. If you want to go back to being Kemetic, down with the Kemetic thing, Hotep, and put on your big ass onks and your oil, go ahead and knock yourself out. If you wanna Shango it up, go do your thing. Put on your dashiki, alafia, ashe to you. Take care. No problem. Got no problem with that. But just be real with yourself, is what I'm saying. All right. So for the sake of time, infernal blessings to all. All right. All right, Brother Gerald. Okay. So that was earlier. I guess you saw what I had to say. So hopefully that helped. Again, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. It's where I do private classes, lectures, and rituals for members only. So if you haven't checked out the page, check it out. Also go on to Instagram and the Facebook. There is a upcoming class on December 19th. If you want to sign up for it, it's open to all. How to sign up for it and the cost is right there on the Primordial Chaos 9 Instagram. All right. What else we got? Let me skip down. I'm just going to look for questions. Yeah, that picture that I had up, bro, that's one of my favorite pictures of Set pimp slapping Horus. I love that picture because it's symbolic. It represents the higher self overcoming the weaker self. right? And we know what Heru and Set represent within the Black Adept or the magician. It represents the attainment of harmony, of light and dark forces, which really is the total embodiment of what Lucifer represents. Light and darkness in a harmonious formula. We do work with light energy, right? Or that lighter energy that right-hand paths talk about. But we just don't block out the other aspect because we know we can't do that because all manifests from that aspect, okay? All right, what else we got? Let's scan down here. Anya, I see you typed in earlier, where can I find the class? I'm not sure if you're talking about the class I just mentioned. If it's the class on Aramon, which is open for all to sign up, that is on December 19th. You can go to right here in the community section, again, Primordial Chaos on Facebook, which we're live now there, and on Instagram at Primordial Chaos 9. The class is $55. It's from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it can be paid for by PayPal or Cash App. I have to put my Cash App info in there, which is Beniti, capital Baniti, and just include in the notes your name and email address so you get the link. All right. Yeah, the book I was using, again, if you came late, The Draconian Path, the book I've mentioned a bunch of times by Asenath Mason. This is a great book if you really want to start out and work the path of the clip path, the draconian path. If you're a brand new, fresh spanking out the gate, it's not really just for beginners, but it is geared for newer people. This is a great book. It covers all aspects of the path. It's going to give you an understanding. It deals with all aspects of the path. I think it's a great book for somebody. I use this as one of the tools of curriculum in my mentorship program. It's a great book, though. If you don't have that book, get it in your library. You will learn a lot from this book. A lot. Okay. What else we got? I know Brian Gerard asked earlier, is Raven here? I don't see her in here, so I'm not sure. I know if anybody's trying to reach out for products, I don't think, I haven't seen. I'm sure we would have saw her. Well, we'll see when we scroll down. I don't believe so, though. All right, what else we got? Anya says, my grandmother was a witch, and she always told me not to mix different practices together either. Yeah. You got to keep in line the correct energies. You got to be careful when you're mixing the wrong stuff. You do need to be conscious of that. So that's good advice from your mother, or your grandmother. I'm sorry. I agree with that. And this is why I want to even show people how to work these paths. Even when you're working with your altars, you can mix different pantheons, but make sure the energy is in line. It's the same energy. It's in accord. But when you start mixing crazy shit, yeah, that can cause a lot of funky shit to happen. So that's good up. Sperlin Lily, what's going on, brother? Hope everything's well with you. Liz says, how can you mix religion with left-hand path? So who is your God and Savior? Exactly. Oxymoron mentality, change of control, still and holding the person back. That's why I say all the people that are still keep mixing these paths, it's subconsciously they're suffering from certain insecurities and fears. That's all that shit is. They can't let go of something and they need to really ask themselves, what am I afraid of? Right? Like I don't do any of that like I told you, that nonsense where people mix a lot of those systems. That's just, hey, if that's your thing, that's your thing. It's just not what I teach here. All right. Lola says, took her a bit to understand the deific mask and knowing that external exists. External is only because the external self is connected in both the conscious and unconscious. That's perfect. Yes. And I know you've been in some classes and you brought this up in classes, and I'm glad now by the way you worded it. That's exactly the approach and the understanding. And you're right. It takes time. It's not something you're going to get right out the gate. Okay. And that's why, as I said here, as we went over the material earlier, it's not all internal and it's not all external. It's internal in the sense that you have to activate that aspect of yourself, that principle of yourself to have the manifestation of what you experience externally. So it doesn't mean there's not external things you experience. And this is why the author says in the book, okay, don't get it twisted. And don't think fully in your mind that none of this is real. It's as real as you have manifested it, right? Because there's some people that teach, oh, nothing is real. Everything is internal. That's fine. That's your opinion. Okay. But that's just not the truth. Okay. And you figure that out as time goes on, but that's good. Ishara Nocturna says, I think Voodoo and Santeria come close to mixing with religion of left-hand path. You must. Yeah, but the problem that I might have with that statement is it depends. There is, for an example, you take Palo Monte, right? And Brother Angel did a great presentation at the Black Adder conference a couple weeks ago. Pure Palo Mayembe doesn't mix any of the bullshit for per se that Palo Monte does. The problem is with a lot of those modern day systems here in the West of Voodoo and Santeria, they incorporate a lot of Catholicism and Christianity in it. Really, I wouldn't consider, it's not really, now, as some aspects of Voodoo, yes, I do see what you're saying. There are some elephants, listen to me, fucking elephants, you heard me? Elements of left-hand path in it. I do agree with that to an extent. Where we have to be careful is some people infuse that and they can mix it with, let's say, working with Luciferian path, etc. You got to understand the fine line between that, because I'm saying that because when you're infusing a system of voodoo that has an influence of Catholicism and Christianity, remember, you are tapping into the energy and frequencies of those spiritual paths, of those gods, or false gods, I should say, that those people uplift. So you're tapping it. Remember, we talk about something on this path called egregore, right? What's an egregore? It's a spiritual group or energies, physically and spiritually, of people who are in the same current, right? When we do rituals on this path, whether it's Luciferian, we tap into the egregore of the current, where we can connect with the people on the current. They don't have to physically be in our presence, but we can connect with them. The Rosicrucian Order does this too, right? Well, you're doing that in a sense. And that's why I'm saying you got to be careful, because you might be tapping into an current and an energy of an egregore that you don't want to tap into. It could be an egregore of slavery and mental indoctrination. So you got to be careful with that. I do see what you're saying. Yeah, there are some connections and elements. That I have no problem with. All right, but good point. All right, what else we got? So Manuel. Mystic Moon says, from a religious perspective, it's like trying to understand which came first, the chicken or the egg. Exactly. It's a waste of time. Anya, Solomon's temple can be used as a metaphor, and it is in masonry. It's a good point. I'm glad you say that. For an example, if any brothers here or any sisters have gone through the Eastern Star, as a Mason, remember the Masonic Lodge, especially the Blue House, on the first degrees of the Blue House, the Entered Apprentice, Feldcraft, and Master Mason degrees are all surrounded about the mysteries of Solomon's temple. Well, you find out that you're not really a builder in Solomon's temple. You find out the temple you're really working on is your personal inner temple, right? I talked about this because when you enter the lodge and you look to the east, you see the rough ashlar and the smooth ashlar. That's the temple you're working on. That represents you. So when you walk into the Masonic Lodge, the rough ashlar is how you enter the lodge, seeking knowledge to perfect yourself. When you're raised up to the degree of a Master Mason, you become the smooth ashlar that sits in the east, on the other side. So you find out, yes, it's symbolic, and the temple you're really working on is the temple of your mind and body, which is you. That's what masonry, real good Masonic Lodge is built on. So yeah, it definitely can be used as a metaphor. What else we got? Yes, people from Black and Fire, people are spooky, and they just want to feel special, and that's the problem. Stop wanting to be special. Be yourself. Okay, just be yourself. Yeah, I mean, we all communicate with spirits, right? Whether we do it like Ashara is saying, spooky, you just got to know when and how to talk about it. Now, you can have a conversation with somebody who has had like experiences. That's different. But when you get on in an open forum and you want everybody to accept your subjective experience, I got a problem with that. Don't do it. You look like a fool. Just don't do it. Artiste Zeno says pleasure is everybody's only God. Fuck that. That's true. Because everybody has their own concepts of pleasure and what they're trying to achieve. So I have no problem with that. That's right. Everyone, you can't run from the pain, the hardships, the blockages. You got to deal with them. Okay. You can run. What's I was saying? You can run, but you can't hide. Right? They're going to find you. Okay. Tibbsman says, I was taught that Kemetic deities are divisions of your spirit. The tree of life breaks it down perfectly. They teach that concept like in the Rosicrucian order, being in 11th going on 12th degree Rosicrucian. There's Kabbalistic studies that break all that down. Yes, and that's one of the many aspects to look at it, right? Now, I don't know if I would use the term perfectly because I don't think anything is perfect because that's a matter of perception. I do grasp that. I've sat in many of those Kabbalah type classes over the years, the last 13 years. A lot of it I agree with. I don't know if I would go as far to say is it perfectly. That could be your understanding of it and your perception, and that's fine. But that is one way to look at it. They are divisions of our spirit because as we read earlier, all the deities in archetype are principles that reside within ourselves. And we learn to activate them, whether it's through that concept, which is fine, or some of the other concepts that we mentioned. So yeah, that's definitely one aspect and perception of it. Artiste Zeno says, all you got is the energy you got to use that energy to gain more energy. That's it. Nothing really to add to that. Sure or not? Yeah, I saw the Leah Remini show on Scientology. For those that don't who know that is, that's the girl that was on King of Queens. That played it. What's his Kevin's wife. She grew up in Scientology, and that's another. I forgot to even mention that when I was talking about cults earlier. That's some fucked up shit. There's another classic example of a mind programming cult. Again, any group, organization, or leader that tries to indoctrinate you and tell you this is the only way to do it, this is the only thing you should follow, don't listen to anybody else, run as far away from them as you can get. So yeah, they are definitely in that category. All right. Artesino says altered states of consciousness are the keys to magic ability. True indeed. Jack Morano, hopefully I said your name right. If a black mass or animal ritual sacrifice doesn't work for someone used to it, what then? I'm not sure if I really understand the question. Let me see if I can read. I don't want to speculate. Maybe you could type something in further. Again, if a black mass or animal ritual sacrifice doesn't work for someone used to it, what then? I think you were talking about earlier when it says if somebody that's been exposed or to it and it's not new to them, it's not what it basically was saying. If I'm right, I'm just going to speak on it briefly because I don't want to misinterpret your question. It's just if you've been exposed to something constantly, it's not going to have the same effect on your psyche. That's what it's saying. So let's just say the animal sacrifice part. If you worked in a slaughterhouse, or if you're somebody that didn't and does a ritual sacrifice, say in Yoruba or Ifa, it's going to have a more impactful effect on your psyche than somebody who sees it all the time. That's really all it was saying, if that's what you're referring to. I'm not sure. But maybe if you are still here, you could type something in later down. I don't want to speculate and carry on if that's not what you meant. All right. Logan Scott says, I stumbled on this live. Everything happens for a reason. Well, glad you're here. La Muerte Draconis says, Lil, show me how suppressed was, then all uphill from there. Well, that's it. That's how you know. And as long as you're going uphill. Sean says, Lil made me realize I'm afraid of sexually aggressive feminine energy. All right. Now that's your message. That's your communication. See, as long as you're getting those breakthroughs, remember it talked about getting clear communication, transformation, change, growing, evolving. That's what this path is about. If you're not doing that, then you're not on this path. This path isn't about worshiping, grovel, giving offerings, praying. What are you praying to? Okay? What are you praying to? There's a difference of doing invocations. Is invocation a form of prayer? Some will say yes. And I have no problem with prayer as long as it's not religious prayer, praying unseen things. I don't like to use the word prayer and link it to invocation because invocation is so much more, because you are not just praying to an unforeseen force, you are invoking the energy of the spirit, archetype, or demon that you're working with. So invocation, in my opinion, is a lot more powerful than religious prayer. So yes, some can look at it and go, is it a form of prayer on the surface? Yes, but it's just a matter of your perspective of how you look at it. Not unforeseen faith-based spooky prayer. No, it's not that. Katati Mama says, I heard someone say he doesn't have a weakness. Well, that was his first weakness. That person is probably a pompous, jackass, insecure fool that is in denial. And he's probably arrogant, and people probably can't stand him or her, whoever that was, or he, as you say. That was their first mistake, saying they don't have a weakness. Guarantee you, if you sat with that person for a few minutes, that's a whole nother story. You pick that apart. That's nonsense. Okay. Logan Scott says, I have a question for someone who's not initiated. Are there any precautions you give to those seeking to connect with and take on the mind of these dark sub-personalities? Yes, you do need, first I would say educate yourself. Don't jump into anything intense that you're not fully feel comfortable with. I'm not saying be afraid. That fear subsides with educating yourself. Now, I mentioned this book because there's a lot of, for an example, basic meditations and simple invocations in here to get acclimated with those type of energies. So I would just say start basic, educate yourself, read, do basic meditations, simple invocations to see how you feel when you connect with these energies. I wouldn't involve doing intense work like blood offerings or intense dark rituals with the deific mass, because if you're not really educated, yes, you can open yourself up to what we like to call psychic disturbances when you're not understanding what you're doing. So I would just say education, step one. Do your research. Once you feel 100% confident and confident, you have no doubt, because like people always ask me to go, oh, I'm wondering if you think it's time for me to do this. Well, the very fact that you're saying, do you think it's time? No, it's not. But when you get up and go, I'm 100% ready, I'm about to do this, I'm all on board, then that's when you know you proceed forward and do what you got to do. But if you're not that, you don't have that confidence, I just say pace yourself, get acclimated with the energy. Before you set out to do any work with any of these archetypes, make sure you have enough of information that you feel confident and firm on what you're doing, okay? That would be my advice. And I would always say start first with shadow work, right? Working with the hidden self, because the hidden self is going to reveal how you connect with these spirits and energies. Yes, the Morris movement is religion. I'm sorry. How is, let's keep it real. Look, I've seen it all over the years, going back to the 80s, early 90s. I've sat in a lot of these Moorish seminars where they're trying to sell naturalization packages, sovereignty packages. End of the day, first of all, I sat in one. The last one I sat in, I was invited. I ain't gonna say who the brother is. It's not important. It was a big one. I was invited in 2007. I'll never forget. Now, mind you, I'm an observer. I pay attention to everything. These guys are pulling up. I watched them. They pulled up in cars with regular license plates on them. That was a red flag. They got regular state tags, registrations on them. So I said, all right, I'm taking mental notes of all this. And then they gave this seminar of, look, just because you got a document that says you don't have to pay tax at Costco, you're not sovereign, okay? So they were selling these packages, how you can become sovereign, and they were charging $2,000, like ridiculous amounts of money, right? And then they opened the floor to questions. That was a mistake. So I had asked, there was 3 brothers sitting up there on the panel, and I had asked, I said, are all you brothers completely sovereign and separate from the legal system? So I got the Ralph Crandon, the stuttering, that was the red flag. So I knew the bullshit was coming. I said, no, just a simple answer. Do any of you guys have a driver's license? Do any, a social security number? And then the brother got offensive. He's like, oh, see, what you're doing is you coming in here trying to, no. I'm asking because I saw you guys all drive in with regular cars with regular state tags on them. So the brother did not want to show any documentation to prove he was sovereign. And I asked if he could open his wallet and show us that he didn't have a driver's license, because if you can't, then anything you're saying from this point forward is just pointless to me. And then I'm questioning and I'm suspect of why you asking or trying to get people to sign up for some sovereignty package and you're not even sovereign yourself. So, you know, basically me and the brothers, we got kicked out. I can tell you that. They made us take our shit and escorted us out because we were considered troublemakers, which hopefully to everybody that was there realized that they were a fucking fraud. Okay. And this is the bullshit that I'm talking about. That shit ain't gonna do nothing for you because they ain't in, bro. I know two sisters to this day that are so jammed up, can't get a driver's license, Social Security jacked up because they try to follow that program, and they are to this day jacked the fuck up. Because let me tell you something, you go do that bullshit, once you get arrested, processed in prison, stand before the judge and tell him you're sovereign. He'd be like, okay, no problem. I'm gonna take you back to your cell. Let your lawyer fight that in court. I ain't got no time for that shit. See, another diversion to distract us from what we need to be doing. You about as sovereign as a fucking a stick of celery. That's about as sovereign as you are. Okay, so yes, that's another religious movement. It doesn't work. Charles says, fight through your fears and know you'll be afraid at times. Spirits can show themselves. And yes, everybody's gonna have their own experience. Yes, the Moorish movement is stagnant and religious, right? Circle 7 Quran. And again, look, I'm not saying spiritually, you know, I know a lot of Moorish brothers. I've read the Circle 7 many times. I'm not saying it's not some good principles you can apply there to everyday life. But there's really nothing there that you go, wow. I just look at the Circle 7 Holy Quran as just a revised methodology of Islam from a more esoterical and metaphysical perspective. And that's fine if that's your path. I'm not saying you can't learn nothing from it, but I ain't down with all that. Spend thousands of dollars to become sovereign, because the only people becoming rich off of that are the people that are charging you the money to do it. Okay. Logan Scott said, are there any exercise practices you would recommend for those who are initiated to prepare? Yes, this book, again, there's plenty of exercises. There's also some rituals in there that are great for people starting out. A lot of them. There's meditations, visualizations, path workings, and rituals. Then that's where I would definitely recommend. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you look at Dr. Delbert Blair, may he rest in power. A lot of you may or may not know, okay? And as I said, in the last year and a half to 2 years of his life, I became very close with him. I had a lot of personal conversations with him. As you know, he came on our radio show at the time a few times. I did a lot of side work with him. He helped me greatly. I consider him a mentor and an elder to me personally. And he taught a lot of stuff that was occult, a lot of stuff you didn't hear about on the surface. He taught me a lot about mirror magic and working with demons beyond the abyss. He knew a lot about that. He didn't really talk. He talked somewhat openly about it, but Dr. Delbert Blair was the real deal. But which a lot of you guys may or may not know, he, to the very point of his passing, he was in serious legal litigation with the Moorish Science Temple because they took him for a large amount of money. He tried to work with them. He tried to get on board and connect with them with the sovereign thing. He invested a substantial amount of money. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because I don't want to bring up all that nonsense. But long story short, he had strong opinions on that. He found out some really foul shit. And to this day, to my knowledge, it was never resolved. And again, up until his moment of transitioning, he was in serious legal litigation with them, suing them. Probably nothing going to happen out of it because they don't care, but you get my point. Brian Gerard says, and me being so-called white or Basque, I was still accepted and that was cool, but the rest was a letdown, but it was mixed with some truth like everything. Yeah, and that's, yeah, as I said, I'm sure there's things in there you can connect with. I'm not saying there's nothing productive in there, but like everything else is some bullshit. Yeah, I see a Duke of Tears and Todd's Tariq Bey. Yeah, and I know they're still out teaching. Again, some things they say that are you can uplifting. There's some things I probably have a difference of opinion, but that's fine. I think everybody has their own gift and skill set. That's what they do. I mean, if that's what they teach, that's what they promote, but we don't have to agree with it. Just like I'm sure they probably would not agree with everything that I'm saying right now. But at the same token, I don't really give a shit. And I'm sure they don't give a shit either, but who cares, right? What else we got? All right, Sperling, good that you got back to work. I know you were recovering from that back injury. That's good to hear. All right, Kitati Mama says, shadow work and meditation are basic paramount fundamentals. Yes, can't overlook them. See, that's the shit I probably would have a problem with. Asia said Hitler was really Charlie Chaplin. He said Jordan Maxwell and Michael Aquino were the same people. And that law, yeah, that's... See, then there's some people that will go to sensationalism. And one thing that I realized that you got to be careful that a lot of these speakers, they know people like to be entertained. And I got to keep it for what it is. The problem with some people that follow these groups or come up under these people, they really want to be entertained, and shit like that captivates their emotions. So they go, oh, wow, that was deep. That's a bunch of bullshit. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to even dumb it down. Now, if he's claiming that, on what basis, I don't know, because that's the first I'm hearing it. If he's basing that on a personal subjective experience, then maybe he had some spiritual experience. I don't know. There's no there's no documentation to back that up. It's a bunch of nonsense. That's for the wannabe heavies and spookies to go, oh, shit. Yeah, I could tell you, Mama, Panic and Bobby Hemmett. Yeah, look, again, they do their thing, but there's a lot of people that come to me, again, Bobby Hemmett and Panic are not left-hand path, okay? They are some form of occult as they identify with. I do agree with a lot that they teach. As you know, on the old radio show, we had Panic on a couple of times, okay? But that didn't mean I agree with everything that Panic teaches, and I don't agree with everything Bobby Hemmett teaches. For an example, Bobby Hemmett teaches that Aloas, who was Crowley's holy guardian angel, according to the Book of Law, and he said that Aloas was a black man on a spaceship on the way back to this planet to save black people. I don't agree with that. Sorry. Okay. I know some people, Panic is a very charismatic speaker. He's got his own group of following, and that's cool. But one thing people years ago, I'm not really into the whole I channel entertainers type of thing. Maybe that's his gift or whatever. That's what he does. Cool. But I've really had people send me emails, how can I channel entertainers? And my response back to them was, I'm not interested in channeling entertainers. I'm worried about connecting with work that can benefit me. I'm not really worried about what, Whitney Houston or Bob Marley or any of those people said. That's not going to do me any good. Okay. I got to worry about myself. So I'm not, this path, if that's your gift and that's your thing, and maybe him and other people have that ability, that's cool. But that's not the focus here. That's not what I'm not focused on any of that stuff. And again, I find like what you mentioned with Duke, some of these people want to be entertained as opposed to being educated. Okay. Let me say it again. Some people get mesmerized because some of these people are very charismatic. I like to be fun and kick it and be entertaining. But if you know me and you've been watching this channel for years, I'm gonna drop the information. You ain't got to agree with it all. I'm not going to sit here and be monotonous like da, 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 da. So you do got to be charismatic, but some people want to be entertained. They don't want to be educated. So it's easier to just believe in sensational shit like Charlie Chaplin was Hitler. I mean, that's just fucking comical to me. That sounds like some shit you read on, what's the name of it? The National Enquirer or the Sun, the paper at the checkout line in the grocery store. That's what that shit sounds like. But whatever, to each his own. To each his own. Yeah, you can't fake this path, Vision TG. There's no faking this path. You can blend in with other paths. You can put on a dashiki, a ankh, some smell goods, and say Hotep, and have the afro and the whole black power and all that good shit, and play the part. Nobody would know the difference. This path, you can't do that, because when you get in that inner circle, you're gonna have to show, prove, and demonstrate that you about this. Anybody that comes amongst us down here personally, we take them in that temple in the darkness. We're gonna see if the bitch comes out. That's how we work, okay? That's how we do. because I don't want no frauds around me. Okay. Yes, you must return to that pure innocence, childlike innocence. Brian Gerard says this channel with Beniti is the best I've ever come across and the most honest wise, real and happy someone we get wise to learn chat. I appreciate that, Brian. Thank you. VL says when you get in touch with your inner child is the ultimate unblocker because the child mind has, that's true. 100%. That's a good point, VL. Brother Beniti, which APL says, which book on the clip off with in-depth information regards to the structure would you recommend as an introduction? This book, again, this introduces you to the clip hop. There's a book called The Clipothic Tree, also by the same author, but I wouldn't really say that's an introductory book. This is because this introduces you to all the gods of the void and the abyss. It goes through the basic beginning stages of the clip hop, and it gives you a good starting point. Again, I have to refer you to this book. Dakar, the Blue Geek, would it be a good idea to get an ancestor genetic test done to see where to start in the spiritual process? It can definitely help. I've done it. I've encouraged people to do it. Use the good DNA site. Don't use those ones that are promoting that $19.99, $29 shit where it's basically just a paternal basic DNA test and it doesn't go back to all your haplogroups and generations. Make sure you do a maternal and a paternal. It will definitely help you in your work. Is it mandatory? No. But is it a helpful tool to start the process? Most definitely. It's going to help you understand a lot about yourself. So I would definitely encourage it if you have the ability to do it. Most definitely. Okay. All right. What else we got? Hold on. Skipped on me. Okay, here we go. Sandra says, so on this path, the person is figuring out themselves ultimately to be conscious enough to choose the next incarnation. What is the ultimate goal of awareness in general? Going to another dimension? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say, because then the question is, what dimension are we talking about? Yes, we have incarnated here many times. The goal is, we step one, we always approach dealing with the now, the present moment. Because once you master the now, that next moment or transitional stage is going to be clear to you. So yes, we've been here many times before. Some of you have come to that awareness in their work. The ultimate goal is to become a self-perfected being. Now, yes, whether that's making, if you use the alchemical concept of what you're describing, making yourself one less dense to become pure energy. Yes, I mean, that technically in a nutshell is the goal, to become a self-perfected being. Now, there's many perceptions and concepts to understand that. Now, when we talk about dimensions, we can travel to those dimensions while still in physical form. So I'm not sure if I would just say, because remember, the astral realm is only the doorway to many different realms. It is not the realm, right? Now, yes, it depends on what spiritual system you're coming from when you talk about dimensions. But yes, we've had many incarnations, but the goal is when we come in or raise ourselves up to that form of pure energy and spirit, we now become these same gods that we are connecting with and working with. So long story short, the goal is to become immortal. It's the simplistic way I can put it. But there's a lot of concepts to understanding that. All right. Yeah, Manuel, I will get that to you, the pick. Sperlin says, how strong in intention do you believe an individual adept can become? As strong as they want to be. It's about what they put in. All right. Phantom Dragon Gitson says, love that you're doing this. Well, I appreciate you watching and supporting. La Muerte Draconis says, Path of the Dragon, love that book, reading it again and again. It's like reading a brand new. Yes, it's a great book. And again, I would encourage everybody here that does not have it to get it. Okay. Fear is the real hell. Fear is how they control you, because if they can control your emotions, they can control you. That's why I said everything that goes on in the news, all the doomsday shit, they keep pumping that fear and captivate your emotions, they can control you. It's that simple. That's fact. Manuel says, starting out on this journey, what books can you recommend to start reading, and which order if you can? Well, you got some of them. I know you're in the mentorship program, but we'll talk further more about that one-on-one. But you have a lot of them now. There's more, but we'll get into that personal one-on-one. Cinnamon Sage question, how do you manipulate the energy of demons to work for you? What does that involve? Man, that's a class in itself. Everything that we're talking about. Your approach, your intent, how you line up your rituals, how you're setting them up, how you're creating them, and what is the purpose and point of what you're trying to accomplish. Your intent is the power that fuels that energy to manipulate. And manipulate is not a bad thing. Manipulate means how do you change to bend, as the author described here, to bend the will of the energy to your favor. That's what you're doing when you're working black magic. You are manipulating the energy. So everything that we talked about, in essence, it involves all of those things. But a lot of it is how you design and create your rituals and how you lay them out. So that can be expounded on further, along those lines. Yes, egregore occurrence. When you belong to a system or work a system, you're tapping into that egregore. You have to understand that. So be careful what you're working with and mixing, okay? What else we got? Venter Thalmodis says, when you say demonic integration, what exactly do you mean? I've heard someone else talk about something to the effect of downloading a demon into their brain or something like that. No, I've heard of that too, but that's not what I'm referring to here. Demonic integration means when we learn on left-hand path philosophies, you'll see it comes from the Hermetic concept of the agathodaemon, right? In Egyptian Heka or black magic, it's referred to as the higher self, the real you, the center seat that sits within you, right? We call it our higher self. We call it that voice of inner intuition, right? Demonic integration, a great book to understand what I'm talking about is The Black Ship by Malthus, Malphus. Your personal daemon, which some link to the system of the Mandela and the demons of the black sun, or the inner black sun that resides within, that where all of this energy manifests through that darkness or chaos, right? But we have also, as it's known in lesser systems such as Thelema, where Crowley referred to it as his holy guardian angel, Awas, right? So, and in the lesser religious systems, they call it their guardian angel, right? In religious, they say, we all have a guardian angel. That's what I'm talking about. All of us have our own personal daemon, our higher self, that is a personal guide for us that connects us to all of these systems, whether it's our ancestors, the archetypes, the demons, the spirit world. The demonic integration book, The Black Ship, really breaks it down and gets into it in detail. But I have heard what you're talking about is another form of demonic integration. That's a little bit different. In essence, you're doing that in rituals on this path, really in general, when you're working with Lucifer, Lilith, and you're doing invoking, right? You're doing that to an extent anyway. But I wasn't, in that particular case, when I was talking about it earlier, I wasn't talking about that, but that's a good question. Powerful Being 666, I'm gonna take about 2 more and I'm gonna wrap this up. Is there any signs you can share that can confirm an invocation was performed correctly, or is there a way to invoke you can share? Well, I'd say these to those 2 questions. Very simple way. By the results, by the way you feel, observe what took place afterwards. Did energy change in the room? Temperature change in the room? Did the elements of the fire and the smoke of your candles change? Did you hear any voices, feel any presences? Did whatever you were invoking for, as time went on, was it for a specific person where time was, I'm sorry, for a specific thing where time had to go by to see the manifestation of the results? Because sometimes it don't happen right out the gate. It takes a certain period of time. And the second thing, the best way to invoke, remember, we call something called performative utterance. Do it with passion. Do it with zeal. Don't be like, I invoke the power of Lucifer to set. That's not going to do anything. Put your passion and power. Use the Sith philosophy as we talk about passion is our power. If you're not doing your invocations with passion and power, they're pointless. You have to, because your passion and power and the vibration and frequency of your invocations is going to determine how powerful you are putting it out there. So you got to be passionate and powerful about what you're doing. That's the best thing I can tell you. All right. Pure Pressure Productions. I like that. Pure Pressure Productions. The left hand has been calling you out but not informed enough to do so. What, well, again, I think we talked about this book here, the Draconian Ritual book, would be the best place. All right. Black and Fire says, if someone fools a couple years ago, if it was some fools a couple years ago walking to Africa, they had 2 babies with them on that. Yeah, I don't know what that's a reference to. Maybe I missed something. All right. I think I'm going to have to wrap this up, people. All right. All right, I'll take this last one here because this is a good one. Last question, and that's it. All right. Blade says, you mentioned that a person can become as powerful as they want as long as they put in the work with this in mind. What is the power? Your intent and your focus, your goals. The power is, have you clearly established your goals, what you're trying to accomplish, and then your approach and your intent. What are you doing to fuel that intent with that power? That's everything. That's in essence is going to determine how weak or powerful you are. If your intent and your focus and your approach is weak, your power is weak. It's that simple. So it's all about the individual and their approach and how they lay out their goals and what they're trying to accomplish. All right. Having said that, I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna have to wrap this up. It's getting late. I got other stuff to do. Got to be up early in the morning. I want to thank you guys for the support. Thank you for watching the channel. I want to thank all the Primordial Chaos Patreon family members too. Again, don't forget class on December 19th. Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram. Primordial Chaos on Facebook. Don't forget to check out the Patreon channel, patreon.com/BANITI Beniti. Check it out and subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Appreciate you guys. We will talk soon. Infernal blessings to all.